Hello, my name is Alyssa Guzman, and this week I conducted an experiment testing three different water samples. The first sample was King Soopers bottled water. The second sample was tap water from my kitchen faucet. I live in the city of Evans, Colorado, and I found out Evans obtains their water supply by connecting into the city of Greeley's water supply, which comes from the Cache la Poudre, Big Thompson, Laramie, and Colorado rivers. And then the final sample that I tested was a small water body near my house. So, if you can see pictured here, there's a little stream that runs along the bike path right across the street from my house. And I went underneath the bridge here and collected a sample from the water body. So, the first element I tested on all three samples was phosphorus. And I added a phosphorus tablet, let it sit for 5 minutes, and then evaluated the results based on the color the sample turned. So if you can see my results here, the bottled water and the tap water were both a lighter blue, which indicated 1 part per million, and then the water body was a slightly darker blue. I was actually surprised by how blue they all were, but the water body would indicate 2 parts per million. Next, following a similar process, I tested all three samples for nitrates, and those all indicated 5 parts per million or less. As you can see, the picture of my results here next to the key, all three samples were pretty clear, or definitely in that light range of 5 parts per million or less. So, according to Hands On Labs, phosphate levels above 1 part per million indicate poor water quality, and that would mean all three of my samples have poor water quality. Furthermore, the U.S. Department of the Interior explains while nitrogen and phosphorus are necessary for plant and animal growth, eutrophication increases with high amounts of phosphorus. So subsequently, all three of my samples are at risk for eutrophication. And I'm not concerned about the nitrate levels in my samples or how they would contribute to eutrophication because, again, they were all within an acceptable range. So for the third test, I examined pH in my samples. And I have the results pictured right here. So my water body and my tap water were both a darker green, indicating a normal basic pH of 8. And then my bottled water was like a lighter yellowish green, indicating a neutral pH of 7, which is excellent. So if one of these samples happened to have a pH of 9, that would also be basic. And the lecture this week explains on the 0 to 14 scale, higher or lower numbers are either highly acidic or highly basic and can be hazardous to humans and animals. And although I didn't observe any organisms in the stream, my son explained to me that sometimes he sees crawdads there, which would make sense because the pH of 8 can definitely sustain life in the stream. So that makes sense. Now, for the final experiment, I used a coliform test kit and let my samples incubate sealed for 48 hours. And the final results were my bottled water was purple, suggesting a negative result and no bacteria was present. My water body sample was yellow, suggesting a positive result and that bacteria was present. And then my tap water looked clear. So I couldn't differentiate, and I don't know if that means maybe I failed to maintain a pure sample. So I couldn't get any conclusive results from my tap water, and I'm not sure where I went wrong when I was conducting the experiment. But the EPA explains that fecal coliform bacteria is present in human and some animal waste. So manure, untreated or partially treated sewage, and leaking septic tanks are all sources of fecal contamination. So, at the very end of this process, I tried to compile the results from all four tests on all three sources to determine which was the best quality. And I was instructed to use a scale of one being the best, two being medium, and three being the worst. And I didn't use the data table provided because I had so many equivalent answers where two samples had the same pH and two samples had the same phosphorus levels. So if you can see, this is the chart that I created. And I totaled every column, and obviously the one with the lowest score would be the best quality. So my bottled water totaled 4, making it the best quality, which that's what I would assume. That makes sense to me. And then my water body totaled 8, which was the worst quality. And again, that's what I would assume. And then I wasn't able to total up my tap water because my last test was inconclusive. But either way, if the last test would have been negative, my total would have been 5, which puts it in the middle. Or if my last test would have been positive, the total would have been 7, which again puts it in the middle. So, of all 4 of the areas that I tested, I am most concerned by the fecal coliform bacteria. Like, just to think about it kind of grosses me out. Conversely, phosphorus is the least concerning for me because the EPA explains that public water systems actually add phosphorus to our drinking water in an effort to prevent corrosion, like from lead and pipes and things like that. So, um, clearly, the results turned out like I would expect. The bottled water was the best quality. The stream, the water body was the worst quality, and then my tap water fell somewhere in the middle. Thanks.